It's disappointing when you look at some of those polls about where people talk about socialism, even though if you ask the question, give me a country where socialism has worked, there's not an answer. And give me a city where it's really worked, there's not an answer.
Well. The very people who totally defended and provided cover for crony capitalism in America are now worried and shocked and chagrined that people are embracing socialism in the US. Now, it turns out that when you make this country unlivable for people who aren't rich, they're gonna be angry about it, and they're gonna look to other systems, economic systems, systems of government, for answers, for solutions. And the fact that Bret Baier doesn't realize that blows my mind. And it's honestly, the fact that he is who he is, he works at where he works, and runs in circles or runs within circles of people who are just totally disconnected from the reality of the vast majority of Americans. I mean, a ton of Americans are currently crippled with credit card debt because they can't afford to make ends meet and they have to charge their groceries on their credit card bill. So, yeah, people are not turned off by Zohran Mamdani and his labeling himself as a socialist. You should ask why that is instead of fear-mongering about it. So look, he failed to explain why Americans are turning away from capitalism, and we're gonna get to that in just a second, but first some context. So Bret Baier, who among the cohort of Fox News personalities, I think tries to be more of a straight journalist, but still, of course, as you can see, injects his opinion into some of these segments, was referencing the following segment from NBC News.
Gallup has been testing this for years, for decades really, basic attitudes towards socialism and capitalism. These are the latest numbers that they came up with. Overall, asking folks, do you have a positive view of socialism? 39% of Americans said yes. 54% said they had a positive view of capitalism. But look at the party split here among Democrats. Look at socialism. That's nationally again. 2/3 of Democrats nationally, not talking New York City, but across the country, say to Gallup they have a favorable, positive view of socialism. Only 42% of capitalism. Go back to 2010 here. Democrats were basically split then, 15 years ago, positive, negative on capitalism. And look at that number, it kind of stayed steady. And then in the last 5 years, it's fallen down to 42%, barely over 40%. And in that same time, take a look at what's happened with socialism. Again, Democratic Party attitudes here. 2010, it was 50-50. It's ticked up. And now in the last couple of readouts, 2/3 of Democrats saying they have a positive image of socialism.
Again, when people feel that the system that they're living and operating under is doing nothing for them, and in fact, it feels like that system is crushing them, they're gonna look for other solutions. Which is why in the, I don't know, since the 70s, as the quality of life for Americans has steadily decreased, you've had people like Bret Baier and people in cable news, in mainstream media, consistently provide cover for the very system that's been crushing people. They had an opportunity to talk about, hey, maybe we should do something about regulations to prevent these monopolies from forming. Maybe we should do something about the fact that, and this is a story I'm currently investigating and working on, it's blowing my mind. You know those luxury high rises that have all those units that sit empty for a long period of time, and you're wondering, like, how are the developers just allowing these units to sit empty? How are they, like, they're losing money. You would think they'd want to rent it out. It turns out that they're charging fees that are not refundable every time someone wants to apply for one of those units. It can be anywhere from $45 to $60 per application. And they just keep rejecting applications, but they don't refund the money. Seems like a bit of a scam, doesn't it? Now, at the same time, the property appreciates in value in this insane housing market. So it's a win-win for the developers. And why aren't our politicians, whether it's on a local level or federal level, doing something to stop that kind of scam behavior from happening? Because obviously we have a shortage of housing. If we have empty, vacant units, I think the developers or the landlord should feel compelled to rent them out, no? This is nuts, but anyway, these are the types of, I'm giving you a very specific example, but housing obviously is an impossible situation for so many Americans. Credit card debt crushing Americans. Student loan debt for a long time crushing Americans, but not every American. That's a specific demographic of people in the country who are having a really hard time paying off those loans, yes, but also realizing that college education isn't necessarily going to give them what they need in terms of a high enough income to make ends meet, especially in the age of AI, automation, you get the picture. Coders, remember when Hillary Clinton said that we should teach all those people who work in coal mines to code? Learn to code. Yeah, coders are losing their jobs at a record pace because of AI. Yesterday, Larry Elder posted the following, which was a plane labeled Mamdani that was about to crash into the World Trade Center, or a building at least, saying, and New York City. Just because Mamdani's Muslim. Can you imagine if any other public figure did the same and put Israel on that plane? I know it would happen. So as you can tell, conservative commentators are happy to bash socialism, but they're not addressing the big question, right? So what is driving Democratic voters away from our current economic situation? So here are some of the reasons, okay? I've given you some specific reasons, but I think what's also important to focus on here is some of this new reporting over at the Wall Street Journal. The average cost of a family health insurance plan is now $27,000. Cool, totally affordable, not a big deal, right? The data is from a survey that was carried out by KFF. And if you take a look at this chart, you'll see how health insurance costs have gone up since 2010. That year, employers paid a little less than $10,000 per family health insurance plan. And workers contributed a little more than $4,000 per year. But this year, employers were paying over $20,000 per family health insurance plan. And workers are paying just shy of $7,000 per year.
So the other day I got a new mattress. My old mattress sucked. It had all these grooves, you'd fall into them, you couldn't get out. It was a disaster. So I got a Lisa mattress, love it. Finally some peace and rest. So I did their cute little mattress quiz. Even their quizzes are cute. Anyways, it turns out my favorite is a Legend Chill Hybrid. I'm not saying that that's an accurate description of my personality as well. I'm just saying. So I got it, I tried it. There we go. Love it. Now getting some peace and rest. You guys gotta check it out. Oh, plus they do really good things in the world. They actually have given away thousands of mattresses to people in need, and they help to clean our oceans. What else do you want? So this is the kind of win-win we love at TYT. Check them out. Go to Lisa.com for 20% off, plus get an extra $50 off with promo code TYT. That's exclusive to our viewers. That's LEESA.com, promo code TYT for 20% off, plus an extra $50 off. Support our show and let them know that we sent you after checkout. Lisa.com, promo code TYT.
And remember, we're talking about people who are fortunate enough to be employed right now, and fortunate enough to be employed full time at a company that offers benefits. Not a lot of people, well, a lot of people do have that privilege, luckily, but many Americans don't. We literally have tens of millions of Americans who don't have any healthcare coverage at all. The cost of health insurance increased 6% from the year before and builds on 2 prior years of 7% gains. The cost is rising faster than inflation. And really, the only politician in Congress that I've seen make a big deal about this is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now look, Democrats are holding up the government funding bill because they want an extension on the Affordable Care Act subsidies so people's premiums don't double, and I do give them credit for that. But I also discredit their efforts when they start tacking on a bunch of other issues that muddies the water and makes their strategy less sound. Keep it simple, stupid. It's like the Democrats forgot how to do politics, but anyway. So according to the Wall Street Journal, health insurance costs are rising due to increased spending on healthcare, and that's because higher rates of medical conditions like cancer for working class Americans is becoming an issue, right? More and more Americans are developing cancer. Increased hospital prices, so hospitals are charging more for their services, and more expensive treatments like GLP-1s, AKA weight loss treatments like Ozempic. Now that's the off-label use for it. It's also for diabetes patients. Now, these higher costs are hitting small businesses the absolute hardest. More than half of small business owners reported that health insurance costs increased by 10% or more this year, according to a survey of 336 small businesses conducted in October. It would be great to live in a country where your employer is not responsible for your healthcare coverage, and Americans don't feel stuck working at a company they don't want to work for merely because they need healthcare. I want to live in a country where we actually have freedom, and that's just not the case here. The problem goes far beyond health insurance. Our citizens are starting to give up entirely on the entire concept of the American dream. And here's what the Wall Street Journal reported just last month. Nearly 70% of people said they believe the American dream, that if you work hard, you will get ahead, no longer holds true or never did. The highest level in nearly 15 years of surveys. Democrats felt more negative about the economy than Republicans did. I don't want you to mistake that as, oh, well, it's because Republicans are rich and greedy. That's not the case. We're talking about ordinary people here, and they're not doing well either. I do think that if your preferred party is in charge, you think things are going really well when the other side thinks that things are going poorly. It certainly was the case during the Biden administration when Democratic voters thought the economy was like, oh, it's so good, the economy's so good. Okay, it wasn't, it actually wasn't. People were severely underemployed, inflation was disastrous. You just have to call a spade a spade. I think what's happening now is that you have Trump in charge, and a lot of Republican voters are like, everything's great, Trump's in charge, the economy is booming. 55% of Republicans, as well as 90% of Democrats, held a negative view of prospects for themselves and their children. So even in the case of Republicans, the majority of them not really happy, not jazzed about the current economic situation in the United States. But don't worry, we're preparing that $3.8 billion check for Israel as we speak. Every year, it's our commitment to a foreign country that has committed atrocities in the Middle East, in Gaza, in the West Bank, and it's never ending. They're still bombing southern Lebanon. So, sorry, don't mean to get mired in more foreign policy, but just kind of getting back to the topic at hand, for Bret Baier, does it make sense to be scared? Sure, you can be scared if you're terrified of socialism. I personally think a mixed economy makes the most sense. I think when you introduce a profit motive into the healthcare system, yeah, that greed obviously is going to supersede what's best for the well-being of the people that the system is supposed to serve. But rather than just getting scared and complaining about it, why don't we do some self-reflection and reconsider the crony capitalism that a lot of people, a lot of elites in this country have provided cover for so long? If they were under the impression that you can just crush the majority of the population for decades and nothing bad will come of that, obviously they're mistaken. And right now, as we speak, we have the federal government looting this country, stealing money from American taxpayers and the future of this country to fund all sorts of garbage, whether it's a freaking White House ballroom, which we don't need, or another war in Latin America, which we also don't need. So hopefully that's helpful to Bret Baier. It's probably not. Probably didn't listen to a single word of that. It's okay. If you don't want socialism, then you should fix the disgusting broken system that Americans have been dealing with for many decades now.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.